This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 380 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today it is my great honor to conduct the 2020-21 Yellowwallpod Season Awards. We've seen 51 games, 115 goals in a season that started late in September, had no winter break and almost no fans. The Black and Yellows swapped their coaches in the middle of the season, replacing Lucien Favre with Edin Terzic. I don't know how memorable this season will be in 10 years, but certainly it was eventful with the late charge to secure Champions League qualification and the DFB Pokal win. So it is now my great honor to introduce you the jury for today's award show. Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing? It's been a while.
It's been quite a while. I think we've all had a few vacations and relaxing times, and it is an honor to be here with the honorable Stefan and the honorable Lars.
Yes, also here the honorable Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, nobody told me anything about the many vacations we had, but I guess one of you must have had multiple because I've had zero.
Well, Matthias, where have you been?
Oh, not too far, just a few hours south in the mountains, along a river for a week with my phone off. So that's a vacation in itself.
Well, I had a nice trip to Belize, which is really cool. First time I went in that area, and I must tell you, just flying with the island hopper there, the little Cessna plane was basically worth the admission fee. But yeah, it was a destination wedding and was really beautiful. Did snorkeling for the first time in my life. It's really cool, and but we digress. So let me just quickly tell you what's going on now. We obviously do this award show once every season, and it's always a little bit different because the categories do not come from us, but from our listeners. So they change every now and then, and we always have a different outcome. I think last year, Rafael Guerrero won this award. We have 13 categories, which are some are serious, some are not very serious. And after that, because today is July 1st, and that means the 2021/2022 season sort of officially started today with the introduction of Coach Marco Rose, and of course the breaking news, the ad hoc news that Jadon Sancho will join Manchester United. So yeah, we'll talk about this after our award show briefly, because obviously we'll now be back on our weekly grind, and next week we'll have all the time in the world to discuss the moves from Terzic to technical director, and Michael Zorc retiring and Sebastian Kehl replacing him, yada yada. And obviously there's a new signing in Gregor Kobel we have to discuss, and maybe by next week we'll have a Sancho replacement or something like that lined up. I don't know, but I guess now it's time to dive in, and here's the first category, and it comes from @NeilHits. Oh boy, and it's a very easy one. I'm so glad
you get to pronounce the Twitter handles and not any of us.
And since you made fun of me, Matthias, you are the first to answer that, because I feel like this is the perfect question for you. Player with best hair.
Ooh, best hair. Gosh. I appreciate the irony of the way you asked that question towards me in particular. I would have to say I am glad that Mo Dahoud actually had a good hairstyle again, because there was a time there where I was questioning a lot of his decisions when it came to that. So I'm going to go with Mo Dahoud.
Yeah, that's also my pick. Lars?
Yeah, it's unanimous.
All right, 3 points for Dahoud. That's a very strong start. The next category comes from Steve Berkowitz, and it's best newcomer, and that can obviously include transfers or homegrown products. I feel like we can sort of morph this into one thing, and I'm gonna go first. I feel like that's really easy because to me it's Jude Bellingham. Lars?
Thomas Meunier, obviously. No. I think it's between Bellingham and Moukoko. Obviously, Bellingham had more impact on the team. Moukoko being the youngest ever to do basically anything in a Dortmund shirt.
You can give half points if you want.
Yeah, I'm not about to. I'm going to give it to Bellingham, but I wanted to give some background, if that's okay, Stefan.
Yes, sure.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Bellingham, 1 point.
Matthias, do you have more background on a different player, or is it also going to be Bellingham? Since I cut myself short, you can elaborate on that. That's why then.
Well, I mean, I feel like it kind of has to be Bellingham. I mean, he had an impact for a longer period of time on more games across multiple competitions than Moukoko did. Even though, and yes, Moukoko did a lot of things, especially firsts. I'm glad he actually scored a goal in a match that Dortmund won. That was nice. But as far as a young player to come on and actually impress me, Moukoko impressed me, but I kind of was expecting to be impressed. Ansgar Knauf. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't watch a lot of Dortmund youth football, and I wasn't really sure when he was first thrown on. And every time he came on, he had an impact. He played well, but it's got to be Jude Bellingham.
Yeah, I think there's not much, not many ways around that. And if we talk about a lot of firsts that Moukoko had, if I remember correctly, when Bellingham eventually scored against Manchester City, I think he became the youngest scorer of the Champions League. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm like 90% certain because I think it was said in the highlights that I watched earlier today. But obviously, maybe someone else in the meantime scored that was even younger, but I don't know. Yeah, Jude Bellingham, I think, is a very solid pick, and I'm really excited to see how his trajectory will develop and go in the next season. I think we'll have a lot of fun with this kid. Next question is from
phrasing, Stefan.
What?
We're gonna have a lot of fun with the kid.
Yeah, he's 18 or.
Yeah, he is 18. You're right.
Anyway, next category. And that's from @Hunt_1909, Jordan Hunt. And he simply asks for the most improved player. Lars, who is that in your opinion?
I think it's another point for Mo Dahoud. I mean, obviously this is kind of a question that depends on your expectation level towards a player, and given that Dahoud played really well after the restart last season when I first dubbed him Lockdown Iniesta, which I'm still quite proud of. I mean, if we take that into account, then maybe he didn't actually improve too much because he was already very good then. But if we think of like the entirety of a player's time at Dortmund so far, I think we can easily make the case that Dahoud turned his fortunes around quite a bit. So I'm going to give him the point, but I will also point out that, and that might be a bit strange in a way, Erling Haaland really improved upon his first half season in Dortmund, especially in holder play, play off the ball, even better runs. So I think even though Haaland came from such a high level, he also deserves at least a mention as an improved player as well.
Yeah, I think there are different arguments to make. I think Dahoud is a really good shout. I think you can even name Morey, because when he started the season, he wasn't all too impressive, but until his really unfortunate injury, I think he lifted himself to a level that was, it was workable. Before that, I think it was Matthias who said that he was in that form not going to be a Dortmund player for very long. Obviously paraphrasing, but he also improved tremendously. But I'm going to go a different route since I know you were going to pick Dahoud, and I'm just for the sake of a little bit of diversity in our choices, I'm going to give it actually to Lukas Piszczek, because I think he throughout the season also improved tremendously, and the way he finished the season, boy oh boy, he really was rock solid, and obviously he did not improve in the sense that he was never before on that level, because he clearly was. There was a better version of Lukas Piszczek than before the season, but I really respect the performances that he showed in the final stretch of the season. I think you can make the similar case for Marco Reus, but Matthias, I'll let you decide what you want to put there.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few people that jump to mind. Mo Dahoud, obviously, but as Lars alluded to, he already got there, I feel like, towards the end of last season. Piszczek, I would say I'd give an honorable mention to Thomas Delaney. Even though I don't feel like he improved, I feel like he got... basically, they found out that he's actually a good player and very important. I'm going to go with Manuel Akanji as most improved player. Now, when you look over the entirety of his time at Dortmund, he started really hot. Then he had that hip injury that I would say plagued him for the better part of 2 seasons. And this season, he, in my opinion, was the most consistently reliable defender Dortmund had. And given his pace and his positioning, has improved a lot. Also, heading of the ball, aerially, he's improved a lot. He's showing a lot of that improvement also right now at the Euros. Big shout out to Switzerland there, of course. So I'm going to go with Manuel Akanji.
Fair enough. Next category comes from Steve Berkowitz again. Surprise of the season. Matthias, what's that?
Edin Terzic? To me, that counts as the surprise of the season. Because obviously we start the season, not a lot of people really know that much about Edin Terzic. And then Favre gets let go. Terzic comes in. It was pretty rocky. A few ups and then again a few more downs. And then it was just an incredibly strong run to finish the season in third in the Bundesliga and winning the DFB Pokal, making it much further in the Champions League than I had expected, given where Dortmund were about the halfway point. So the big surprise for me is Edin Terzic.
Fair enough, Lars.
Yeah, I'm not going to give this to a person. Rather, I think, as Matthias alluded to, the surprisingly deep Champions League run was not something I thought was possible at various stages of the season. Obviously, with the coaching change, a lot of uncertainty there, with Terzic never being a head coach at any level, let alone in the Champions League level. And then getting drawn with Sevilla, who, while on paper, probably were one of the more favorable draws in terms of, team quality or whatever, still a side that just from their makeup, if you like, would give Dortmund problems usually. And I mean, they did to an extent, but getting past them and then giving Man City the best fight they had gotten at that point in the Champions League. Obviously, they lost the final to Chelsea. Not necessarily something I predicted or thought, as I said, was possible at various stages of the season. So Dortmund's Champions League run will get its one and only point, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think this is a really good way to answer the question, because to me the surprise of the season is really the strong finish, because I didn't really anticipate Dortmund still finishing in the Champions League ranks, to be honest. And you just alluded to the strong Champions League finish, and these were all sort of in games every 3 days, and Dortmund somehow managed to eke out a cup win, eke out a third place finish, and in that time also really compete well against Manchester City, and were obviously hard done by some refereeing decisions, and obviously some comical Emre Can defending. But that to me, that we're now sitting here with Champions League football to look forward to for yet another season is to me the surprise of the season. Probably not had you asked me at the start of the season, but as the season progressed and as Dortmund didn't cover really themselves in glory, that was quite a surprise to me, to be honest. So a very positive one. Does not go to a player, only goes to Terzic, but that is totally fine with me. The next category will definitely go to a player, and it's from Eric Raven Fisher, and the category is most underrated player. And I'll give this one to Manuel Akanji, because I feel like I always forget to rate him appropriately in my mind. I always see that he has good performances, but for some reason I just never really write the mental note of how good he is, and sometimes I feel like I do not appreciate the performances of Manuel Akanji enough, also not on this podcast. So that's maybe a very personal pick, and you guys may have someone else, but I always catch myself not giving him enough credit. So by that logic, to me, he's the most underrated player. There are obviously other candidates as well, but it's a very subjective category to begin with. So Matthias, what's yours?
I'm going to go with Thomas Delaney. Thomas Delaney. I know that's going to piss one person in particular off on Twitter. Really doesn't like him, but that person really doesn't know what they're talking about. So Thomas Delaney for me is the most underrated player. What he can bring on a consistent basis. I mean, that's the thing. Technically, you look at someone like Emre Can, who theoretically fulfills the same role. Can is technically more gifted, more versatile as far as the positions he can play, but Thomas Delaney is consistently solid and strong. He doesn't have the Emre Can gaffes or over-exuberance, let's call it that. And I just feel like Dortmund are better with him in the side, especially in difficult matches.
Lars?
I'm almost tempted to go with Mahmoud Dahoud again, because especially in like German media, a lot of people haven't actually realized how good he is and how consistent he's become. There's always that half sentence of if he can produce this level for a continued amount of time or whatever, in terms of him being a stalwart for years to come in this Dortmund side, which I think we are now all in agreement that he probably should be. I think you could also make a case, and that might really surprise people, for Thomas Meunier, because he definitely wasn't as horrendous as people, myself included, like to make out on Twitter. I mean, there were obviously horrendous performances in there, but I would say that his baseline level wasn't, complete, utter disgraceful, whatever.
Yeah, I had a similar argument lined up for Roman Bürki, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, but he lost his starting spot to Marvin Hitz. Like, I don't think you can give him points in an award show. Actually, I'm going to second Matthias's choice of Thomas Delaney, myself being someone who used to not appreciate him enough. I joked at some point during the season that I found myself and learned to love Thomas Delaney, and while I wouldn't necessarily put it like that in writing, outside of Twitter, I definitely do appreciate now more what he does for the team. And want to also point out that he moonlighted at centre half in the first part of the season when Favre was still manager, and they dabbled in the back three a bit, and he did surprisingly well there. So my point goes to Thomas Delaney.
Very well. Next category comes from The Ebner, and it is best player in a supporting role. Let me do this again. Best player in a supporting role. In parentheses, it's off the bench super sub. I don't really have one for this yet, to be honest, because I don't know. I need more time to ponder. Maybe Knauf, but I don't know. Matthias, maybe take this one away from me if you can.
Yeah, I mean, impact sub. I mean, maybe Moukoko at times. Ansgar Knauf at times. Other than that, people that would come off the bench and consistently lift the team. I'll be honest, I can't really think of anybody, so I'm just going to go with Ansgar Knauf.
Fine. Lars?
Yeah, I mean, I would take a mulligan on this, and I'm certainly a bit surprised, Stefan, that you need more time to think about it, because you are the only one who knew about these categories until 27 minutes ago. I seem to recall...
Not that long in advance, to be honest. It's not like I looked it up yesterday what all the replies were. I did like an hour before recording, so I had a bit
Fair
more
enough.
time, but you know.
I mean, twice as much as zero is still zero. Yeah, Knauf is a decent shout, even though, I mean, how many appearances did he even have? I think Brandt had a few late in the season where he did some good things off the bench. I seem to recall against Leipzig in that 3-2 win, which we might hear about later on. Yeah, for the sake of variety and not giving Knauf too much credit for so few appearances, I'm going to say Moukoko.
Fine. Now I have to find him in my little spreadsheet. There he is. And I guess I still have to give it to someone. So I'm going to take Julian Brandt because he had some really cool moments as a super sub, which he arguably maybe should have or ought to have had as a starter, but due to the lack of performance, but let's not dwell on that too long and move on to the next category, which comes from Lucas Stoller, and this one is the quote-unquote do-over of the season. If you could go back in time and change one thing, what would it be? For example, firing Favre sooner, playing Dahoud sooner, etc. Matthias, what would be your do-over had you that time capsule?
Play Lukas Piszczek much sooner, because, oh my God, right back, problem. That was the number one area that most teams had their assists come from against Dortmund. So, and once Piszczek played, that kind of got shut down. Plus, obviously, he played exceptionally well beyond just the defensive side. So that would be my do-over.
Lars, what? Let me just have a little swig of water while you take away the answer here.
I mean, I almost think that the season ended in such a way that I don't want to change too much, because it was quite a cool story for Terzic to lift into the cup title and for them to make that late run or late charge into the Champions League. So I'm actually going to say protect Matteo Morey's knee from that horrendous injury in against Kiel somehow. I think he was only subbed on and then had to come off a few minutes later. So maybe go back in time and say, Morey, you don't have to play today.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. Now, I was about to say something, I'm just not. So, I think, if we could prevent all injuries, that'd be perfect. Obviously, the Morey one was is a really good shout. Now, one thing, if I could do something over, it's maybe something that I can't give to any player, because be a fictional player, would be sign another striker. Because obviously in the period where Dortmund sort of strolled towards Favre's firing, that coincided with Haaland's injury, and I think Dortmund could have done much better had they had a better striker at their disposal. Obviously, Terzic, when he took over, he started Moukoko, I think, in that number 9 spot, and then at some point he started Tigges. Was it against Braunschweig in the second cup round or something like that? But my point is, I will always remember from the season is that when we were chasing the game in Munich in the league game, we brought on after Haaland, who basically was the only source of danger for us. He had to come off after like 60 minutes or so, and then we brought in Stefan Tigges, who, I mean, is an alright player, I guess, but you just cannot compete against Bayern Munich with a 4th division striker. Let's put it this bluntly. And if I had to change something, it'd probably be that, a very easily identified issue which everyone saw happening before their very own eyes before the season. I think even Watzke at some point said that was it about the previous season even that they should have had 2 strikers, and then Dortmund make a similar mistake again. So if I had to change something, that's be it. But beyond that, I think since we have hindsight on our side, I'm also actually quite happy with the season. I also, as stupid as it sounds, I'm kind of glad that Dortmund did not win the championship, because celebrating titles during the pandemic kind of sucks. I mean, just look at how Dortmund couldn't really have a big party in the city after winning the cup. That's a big dampener, obviously. So, there's that. Anyway, moving on, category number 8, and it's by Tim Snodden. And it's a bit of a mean one. It's best keeper, Lars.
Anyone playing Dortmund.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I refuse to give either Marvin Hitz or Roman Bürki a point for their job sharing efforts this season.
Of all the keepers who played Dortmund, who was the best? Who had the best outrageous performance? Was it Zentner for Mainz or Gikiewicz for Augsburg?
I don't remember that stuff.
Fair enough. Matthias?
You only know that basically every Bundesliga goalkeeper, if you go back a couple of years, one of their best performances will invariably have come against Dortmund.
Matthias?
I mean, if we take the question at the face value of it, for me it is 100% Roman Bürki. He's a better keeper than Marvin Hitz, but I've said that until I've been blue in the face on the podcast, on Twitter, and anywhere where people will let me speak. But as far as keeper against Dortmund, there were quite a few. For some reason, I have Robin Zentner sticking out in my mind. He had a few crazy saves for Mainz in a game that Dortmund really did dominate. But yeah, but taking the question again, I know it's a little bit tongue in cheek to a degree, or maybe it isn't. I don't know, but if we're looking at which Dortmund goalkeeper is the better goalkeeper, then it's Roman Bürki.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of split on this. I don't really have a keeper to me that was better than the other, because I'm okay with Marvin Hitz's performance. I thought Roman Bürki, not his best season, but he did have a lot of good saves as well. So yeah, I'm actually just going to withhold this award entirely. So Matthias, you get your number 1 point for Roman Bürki, and I think this is just where we move on to, and that's a more of a fun one, and it's the Schmelle goal of the season. It's by Ed Bosch for lunch, and he wants basically to know the goal that brought you the most joy. And before anyone says anything, so Lars, now that you had about 2 seconds to think about this, which goal is in your memory that still pulls on your heartstrings?
Shockingly, I'm going with, I think, whichever came first of the Hood against Sevilla and Bielefeld. I think it must have been Sevilla. But okay, for him to finally land one of his mid-range shots, possibly my favorite player to finally have that positive experience again after a fairly long wait. One of these, the Hood goals, whichever came first.
Okay. Matthias?
I would have to say the one that pulled my heartstrings the most was obviously Mukoko's first senior team goal.
Against who?
It was a losing effort. Union Berlin. It was the equalizer.
We're testing Matthias here, whether he actually knows. But yeah, it's so sad that all of Mukoko's great moments, in quotation marks, sort of came in draws and losses, if I remember correctly.
He did score one in a match that Dortmund won, I believe. But the Union Berlin one, and it was one heck of a strike too on top of it. So that would be the one.
Well, I agree with all of you, but I'm gonna have a third choice now, and that's Felix Passlack. I don't even remember against who it was. Might have been Freiburg or so, when Haaland was sort of free on goal and just squared it over to him. And Passlack, after 2 or 3 years on loan or however long it was, having this, even if it was a tap in, it was just still a very joyous moment. And so I'm gonna give it to him. And with that, we'll, go to a bit darker category, I guess. And that's from Dela Andrew at Everything Soccer. It's the miss of the season. Lars, what's the miss of the season? Can go abstract here too if you want.
I think I'm going to have to, because I don't remember any glaring misses. I'm sure Haaland missed a sitter here and there. I mean, that comes with the territory of being a striker.
Cup final, Julian Brandt against Leverkusen, like the top two of my head.
Okay, don't remember either one, obviously. Can someone else go first?
All right,
I actually have one. I have one.
Okay.
But Stefan, you said you have one. You go.
Okay. Well, see, it's not really a miss because it's whatever. But I would give this to Thomas Meunier Bayern game when he.
No, that was going to be my pick.
I'm sorry. All right, you go then.
No. It's fine. It's fine.
You have
Thomas
the better
Meunier gets
voice,
2 points.
So you just do it.
I mean, that was, to me, that was the turning point in that game against Bayern. Thomas Meunier threw. If he would have just composed himself a little bit, I think then Dortmund go on to absolutely win that match. And unfortunately, that was not the case.
All right, Thomas Meunier earning himself 2 points here. We could make it minus points if you want, Matthias. I'll let that up to you.
Oh no, let's give him the points because, like Lars said, I think he gets a little bit too much shtick from people.
All right, Lars, have you thought of a miss of the season yet?
I seem to recall Haaland smashing a penalty on the crossbar so hard that the goalpost almost broke. I'm not sure if that's like
Against
gaslighting myself, but it did happen, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
was it
so
against Cologne or something?
You know how bad my recall is.
We're so well prepared.
It's 5 weeks
crazy.
ago. I mean, just give me 1 point for Haaland and move it on.
All right, fine. Oh, God. I can't even find him on my spreadsheet now. Great. Anyway, let's move on because this is getting almost tedious here. And that's the category where I'm very ill-prepared yet again, but I think I have an answer. Anyway, that category does not come from anyone because it's just our standard category, and that's assist of the season. Lars, since your memory is dwindling with every second, you go first.
I don't know. I'm not trying to rig this vote in Mahmoud Dahoud's favor, even if that might seem that way. But I'm going to give him the point for the ground ball assist. I don't even know if that's counted as an assist in every stat collecting side against Wolfsburg for Haaland's, I think, second goal, where he picked off a wayward pass by John Brooks. And released Haaland with a ground ball. Haaland's first touch came right after the halfway line, and he scored from the edge of the box. So obviously he had to run I don't know how long that pitch is, but 40 yards or whatever, or 35 yards. But still, if that is counted as an assist, I will give this point to Mahmoud Dahoud again.
Well, that's unfortunate because I exactly the same play. My alternative pick would be Julian Brandt against Hertha, also to Haaland. I think that was a no-look pass into the box where he perfectly timed it. But obviously, it must be that Dahoud ball also because that Dortmund would have beaten Hertha that afternoon or evening or whenever it was. With or without that Brandt assist, but Dortmund against Wolfsburg, they were down to 10, and obviously in hindsight, Wolfsburg weren't really threatening all game, but getting that second goal was obviously a big deal, and I think that that win, those 3 points, made a huge difference in Dortmund's pursuit of the Champions League spots, and maybe also their ability to still believe in it. So I'm also gonna give it to Dahoud and this ball because it was also a really outrageous pass, even though he sort of just pass it vertically forward. But that's how it goes. Matthias, do you have a different?
Nope. No different. 3 points to Dahoud.
All right. So and now it's time for goal of the season. Ding. Matthias, you go first.
Oh, well, I mean, there were quite a few. I'm thinking Sancho 1-0 against Leipzig just because the entire team move and play and Reus's little flick to system. But to me, the goal one that truly stands out is Erling Haaland 2-0 scissor kick volley goal against Schalke 04. Second Bundesliga side, Schalke 04.
Lars?
Yeah, just really quick, I think CNN has called the race for Mahmoud Dahoud. But I'm also going to go, obviously, with that Haaland goal.
Well, let's move over to Steve Kornacki at the big board and see what he's saying. I think Haaland against Schalke takes the cake for everyone here. That was just outrageous. So, I was really torn also between the Dahoud against Sevilla goal. That's obviously a fantastic goal. Now, obviously, I said at the intro there was going to be 13 categories, but I was wrong. One category just skipped over to the next page in my Google Doc. So here we go, the last category, and maybe the all-deciding one, we will find out. And that's the player of the season. So, Lars, who to you is the player of the season? Be it on merit, performance-wise, or because he's your favorite, or whatever. Just say the name.
Do I only get the name, or can I explain myself?
No, you can obviously explain it.
Thank you. I want to give this, obviously, to Mahmoud Dahoud on balance of all the awards today. But I think, given that he was sparingly used for too many parts of the season, that would kind of feel wrong in a way, even though this is obviously of no importance whatsoever to anyone. I think you could make the case for quite a few players, but most of them lack that bit of consistency. For example, Jadon Sancho didn't score his first goal until the turn of the year, I think, at least in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, it was actually against Wolfsburg, the 2-0 in stoppage time in the home match.
Marco Reus wasn't really all that in the first, two-thirds of the season almost, yeah. Akanji really came on late. Hummels, standard season for him, high standard, but still. So I think on balance of everything, I kind of think you have to go with Erling Haaland just because without him, they'd be absolutely nowhere. And I don't think you can say the same about anyone else apart maybe of Mats Hummels. So Erling Haaland.
Yeah, I think if I see this 41 goal number in 51 games and he didn't even play in every game, that sort of stands out. And I mean, there are other players I would like to pick, but I feel like just the sheer quality of Erling Haaland and the phenom, if you will, that he is to me, that's also the pick I will have to go with. Or I sound like I'm picking him against my own will, but obviously I'm a big fan of Erling Haaland, and I like to give him this. So there you go. Matthias, do you have another pick?
Well, I mean, I kind of went through the same thought process as Lars there, this guy, that guy, and so on. As far as consistency overall, I'd look at Mats Hummels in that category. Probably Nico Schulz as well. But when it really comes down to it, it has to be Erling Haaland, because if you look at, best player, most valuable player, if you just break it down into that MVP type of category as who is the most valuable to the team, who, if you take him out of the squad and put somebody else in there, dramatically changes the outcome for the team, it's got to be Haaland. There's just nobody else. I mean, if you look at peak Lewandowski, peak Aubameyang, those are just difference makers, but Haaland, I almost feel like he's the closest to a Lewandowski difference maker that Dortmund have had. I mean, Aubameyang just missed way too many good chances. Plus, he's kind of a prick. But the Haaland, it can only be him. That's the statistic you said of 41 goals in 51 games, even though, obviously he didn't play in all of them. That's just insane. And he's young, and he's going to get better, and he has so many areas he can improve on. Heading, which is so weird given his size and power. If he gets that done, I mean, greatest striker of all time could come from Norway. So it's got to be Haaland.
Yeah, I totally agree with that analysis, even though I recall one really good header. Was it against Leipzig, where Dortmund had a really awesome combination on the left side of the box, and then you have this lob to the other end of the far post, and he just heads it over a Leipzig defender. I think that was a really cool goal. I think that was in the game in Leipzig. Erling Haaland, I think unanimous for us, the player of the season. However, as Lars already alluded to, he is not the winner of the Yellowwallpod Season Award, because the winner is... Alright, that triple ding did not come off as I wanted to. The winner is Mahmoud Dahoud, and as I said, the beauty is correct, because if it weren't for the first question and the player with the best hair, it probably would have not been Dahoud, because then it would have been Haaland with 7 points, but it's Dahoud with 8. And he, started at the top of the table very early on with, the 3 points for best hair. I don't know, maybe some people would pick Witzel, but I'm in the Dahoud camp as well. So Mo Dahoud, I think that's a very... deserved award as well. I'm very glad with the season he's had, and I'm very curious to see how he will develop under Rose and how he will fare when fans are actually back in the stands, as you last dubbed him lockdown in Iniesta. So obviously exciting. He has been a player that's been around for many years. I feel like For too long, it was like he's just sticking around because Dortmund have paid him so much money that he didn't want to, go elsewhere. But, he's stuck around and at some point came through with his quality and made a big difference for Dortmund. And I think we're all happy for him because he's a very likable guy. Lars, what are your thoughts on the Yellowwallpod Season Awards winner Mo Dahoud? What's your top line reaction?
Well, first of all, I basically decided this myself because I was the difference maker. I feel a tremendous amount of pride in that. I don't know if I believe in democracy anymore, but I do believe in the Yellowwallpod Season Awards. So obviously this was the perfect choice.
Matthias, from juror to pundit, immediately your reaction to this award and how it went. Are you happy with our picks?
Yeah, no, I think the real winner, of course, for Mo Dahoud getting this is, of course, me, because I criticized him so heavily for so long, and that motivated him intrinsically, even though he obviously doesn't know it. It somehow subconsciously, through the ether, got to him, and he went, wait, the Yellow Wall was critical of me? I actually have to play well now. And I do also take credit for Moray, so humble as always, Stefan.
All right, that concludes the Yellowwallpod Season Awards, and now it's time to switch over to the actuality of the July 1st that we're having right now on this rainy Thursday in Philadelphia. And so Dortmund did introduce their new coach for the season. Not many surprises there. Marco Rose coming in. Lars, I assume you've seen the first news conference with him and Aki Watzke and Michael Zorc. Just for, I don't know, however long you want to answer this, give me your reaction / comments of that news conference. Maybe summarize what he said for people that don't know, and then I'll give it over to Matthias.
Well, I'm definitely not going to summarize a 35-minute news conference for our listeners who can just
tidbits,
go
Lars.
to twitter.com/blackyellow is, I think, the English account, which live tweeted a few of the things he said. I will make more general observations, the first of which, he still is a handsome devil and looks good in black and yellow. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I think he was well prepared, seemed very relaxed, at home in that kind of environment, which isn't the case for everyone. I think if we think back to the unveiling of Lucien Favre, that was a bit of a cringe fest, especially the interview afterwards with Nobby Dickel, who, I mean, every interview with Nobby Dickel is awkward because he's not like good at his job or anything outside of being a club legend and the hero of a cup win 32 years ago. Also, Peter Bosch's unveiling, you kind of felt right then and there that he wasn't actually the first choice, and definitely not getting this feeling with Rose. I
also recall a very awkward Nobby Dickel Peter Bosch interview. So I think the only
case in point.
Yeah, I think the only one who actually nailed it, and I hope I'm not making this up in my weird mind, is Peter Stöger. I feel like when he talked to Dickel, that was actually watchable.
No, I think Tuchel did well as well. Watzke always looks gloomy, and he looked super tired, so I'm assuming they had long discussions about Sancho last night or something like that. If because he's the boss of the whole ship, Watzke getting like the first crack at introducing a new head coach is always a bit like low-toned and dull, but as soon as Rose took over and kind of talked freely, I think he was eloquent. He was, as I said, well prepared, cracked a few jokes with the media members present, gave engaging answers, which again people can just read up instead of me trying to recall something from like 11 hours ago now. It's the first piece of info we get on a new head coach or a new man in charge in whatever capacity, so it's not like there's a lot of stuff that gets thrown around and is super newsworthy, but I think it's more about the first impression they give off, and he definitely gives off the right kind of impression that I want from the new Dortmund manager.
Matthias?
Yeah, I mean, he seemed right at home. They he mentioned a few basic things, tactically speaking. I don't know if that's something you want to get into here. I did chuckle at your tweet about, did Rose just mention two strikers with Zorc sitting in the same room? Brave man. My big takeaway from that, aside from him, feeling pretty at ease there. And I think the move he made from Salzburg to Gladbach and then to Dortmund, it's kind of the right level of trajectory when it comes to ease of pressure because it builds every single step of the way. Beyond that, his family, his wife and his daughter will still be living in Leipzig, so he's going to go back and forth. That's always, I feel, it can work. It's his personal choice. I understand it. I think that's, as someone who has worked remotely from my family, that is not easy. So hopefully that doesn't mean one day he's going to work in Leipzig. And beyond that, when they did talk about tactics briefly and what formation, Grundordnung, what formation he is going to play, he kind of deflected and said, the formation isn't that important. We want to be flexible and stuff like that. But he did mention 2 strikers, and we all know that's something he's favored in the past and had a lot of success with, especially at Salzburg. And then he said, like under Eden, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, that's something that'll be there too. So you can kind of see where diamond. He wants. Yeah, and and then the diamond, of course. And so you could kind of see where he's leaning towards. And that could also, bleed into your obvious next question, which will then go into the Sancho thing, is does Dortmund then even need a replacement for Sancho if you're going to play a 4-4-2 diamond system? But there are players that under him will benefit from it. I'm looking at Julian Brandt. I think this could be his chance to really showcase again the Julian Brandt that we once knew. But yeah, it was good. It was good to see, and I agree with Lars. He looks good in black and yellow.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny when he cracked a couple of jokes, and it was a little dorky. However, I also felt like that no one next to him or in front of him really responded. So it was I can really identify with that because very rarely anyone laughs at my jokes, apart from myself, obviously. So yeah, I thought it was a very serene sitting, if you were. Is this the most euphoric I've ever been about the coach? Obviously, no. Also a bit dampened by the gloomy face of Watzke. He really looked like he was not happy, and he obviously, talked about Sancho. I think he said something along the lines of he's, not happy or sad about the money because he rather would have kept him, but obviously the deal is not yet finalized. But it's down to Jadon Sancho now being still at the Euros and in the quote unquote bubble, and he still has to pass a medical with Manchester United. But the transfer fee Dortmund said is 85 million. Then they said that there's still something to deal with previous club. I think that means Manchester City, and that at the end of the day, Dortmund will have 56 million euros on their side, if I read this little statement correctly. Lars, obviously the first question that I've been asked, I will pass it over to you. Do you think that amount of money is enough for a player of Jadon Sancho's quality?
First of all, a slight correction.
I knew
the fixed transfer fee is 85 million, yes. There's also expected to be some bonuses involved, and there's been reporting that those are easily achievable, so presumably it's somewhat similar to some of the escalators, if you like, in the Dembele deal. So if Sancho, for example, qualifies for the Champions League next season with United, having played, 20 competitive fixtures or whatever, it's going to be another couple of million or whatever. So ultimately, I think this is going to come in at a shade under 100 million, and the 56 that didn't have anything to do, 56 million didn't have anything to do with the Sancho transfer fee. It was about their books in general. I don't necessarily remember all the details, but didn't have anything.
I just read it again. Yes.
Yeah. So is it enough for Sancho? In a vacuum, obviously it isn't, because he's been, I would say you could confidently make the argument that he's been the best attacking player in the Bundesliga over the last 4 years, or last 3 years in particular, after Robert Lewandowski of Bayern. I think obviously, if you made the argument for Thomas Müller, you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. But I think that's the kind of player we are talking about. So in a vacuum, you would say him going for much cheaper than what Dembele ultimately end up costing Barcelona or some of these other players. Jack Grealish is possibly moving for much more intra-Premier League, despite playing for a smaller club than Dortmund and not having any Champions League experience with Aston Villa. But I think it's not necessarily the right way to look at it. First of all, you have to remember that this is still a COVID market for Dortmund, and when they didn't let go of Sancho last season, they weren't expecting a season basically without fans and without the millions of income that comes with it for a club with this massive a stadium. I mean, that is a huge factor for basically everything they do, and having an empty stadium for 30 or so matches takes its toll. So that's one thing to look at. And then also I think, and this is something that Watzke mentioned explicitly, Sancho wanted this move. He wanted to go to Manchester United, not to move in general, and let's see where we end up. No, he asked for this move, and after being denied the move last season, he didn't pout, he didn't go on strike, he didn't pull a Dembele/Aubameyang move. He did have a few weeks in which it was quite apparent that, not getting the move worked his mind a bit, but he still, we talked about how great he was basically from early January forwards, and he really was so vital in winning the cup, their first major trophy in 4 years, and also getting into the Champions League. So it makes sense for Dortmund to look at it in the sense of getting the same amount of money basically that United offered them last season. So it's a dumb argument to say they didn't get 120 for him last season. Nobody offered that. Plus getting one more year out of him and having at the end of the day, really good season, in large part thanks to him. So I think if we take all these factors into account, he deserved the chance to get his wish, and Dortmund were somewhat fairly compensated, even though, again, in a vacuum and in different years, they undoubtedly would have gotten a lot more for him.
Yeah, I think a realistic fee, given the performances we have seen in the so-called vacuum, as you said, I think we're maybe in the 150 to 200 million corridor. Maybe that's a little high, but I also think he's really good and he's really young, and at least in my mind, there should be a lot of clubs lined up. But he obviously requested that transfer, as you just said, and Dortmund sort of obliged. I don't know how much that factored into the poker between the two clubs. Before I ask Matthias about this opinion, there's just one thing I want to say, and it's that I'm really grateful for the time we've had with Jadon Sancho. I think especially in the last season, he really matured as a player. Obviously, already in the season before, he was outspoken, in terms of social justice. He had this Justice for George Floyd shirt, but also in general, I think you could feel in the end that there was a genuine love for Borussia Dortmund. Obviously not big enough for him to sort of commit on an even longer term, but I think as far as young players coming to Dortmund to make the next step, Dortmund obviously really hit the jackpot there. Really nice chap, and I'm just very grateful for the development as a footballer and as a person, and that we were there to witness it. I got to witness it a little closer than other people, because back in the day I was still working for ESPN, so I got to see him in person on a regular, and that's obviously even more fun. As I always like to say, if you can watch it in the stadium, you see the skill sometimes a little bit better than on TV, because in real time it's just maybe even a bit more ridiculous sometimes. So as hard as it is to see him leave to Manchester United, I think we can all be very happy with the fact that we even had this amazing player to enjoy. So I'm hoping and looking forward to the next gem that Dortmund will unearthed somehow from somewhere. I'm sure there are more talented teenagers waiting for Dortmund to sign them. I mean, we've just have Jude Bellingham, who obviously is another really great prospect. Matthias, your thoughts on Jadon Sancho moving to Manchester United for about 85 million plus?
Well, I think financially, Lars said everything there, and as you did as well, it makes sense now. I think Jadon Sancho is disappointed that he didn't go last season, but I think he understood, given just everything that was happening with the pandemic and so on. Getting one more season out of him that was this good, and him leaving on a high. I mean, no, they didn't win the Bundesliga title, they didn't win the Champions League, but they did win the DFB Pokal in convincing fashion under a coach you could tell really cared about the players and cared about Jadon Sancho, and I think Jadon Sancho cared about him as well. He identified with the club, and we had some great years with him. Best years logically are still ahead of him, given his age and the normal development cycle of a player. And I wish him the best-ish of luck at Manchester United as a Tottenham guy. But I do have some concerns. I don't think he'll have it as good in England as he did in Dortmund, as far as treatment
and food,
lifestyle, pressure, abuse. That's going to be a thing. He's going to have to go to Chelsea twice a year or once a year, and face off his original parent club, Manchester City. So, and the fact that he's at the Euros now after another amazing season for Dortmund at the highest level, doing it in the Champions League, in the Bundesliga, winning a cup with them, and not getting ahead of Jack Grealish from Aston Villa or Bakary Saka from Arsenal. I'm sorry, England, you have an idiot as a coach. I do not like Gareth Southgate as a coach, and not playing Jadon Sancho, it just is insane to me. And that's a little bit of I don't know if it's like this Premier League bias that plays in there, and that obviously plays also into Jadon Sancho's want and desire to move back to England so he can play for England. I'm a little concerned that, he won't be given any time. There will be an immediate ultra high expectations. And we criticize German media landscape, but German media landscape is like a preschool kindergarten teacher compared to the media landscape in England, especially when it comes to the tabloids, who just look at the treatment of Raheem Sterling, versus someone that's, like a Jack Grealish. And I'll just leave it unsaid there. I think people know what I'm getting at here. And so, Jadon Sancho, I wish you really the best of luck. You deserve to have success, except twice a year when you play against Tottenham. And I really hope he gets treated respectfully, and I'm just a little bit concerned. That's all.
Yeah, I think one point I wanted to make that sort of, burning on my fingertips the entire time is that I am really annoyed with the fact that he's not really been picked by Southgate. Because on a more general point, I just think it's a big disservice to the Bundesliga and other international leagues, because I feel like it can be discouraging for young English talent to move abroad, because if you look at what Sancho did at Dortmund and still not get picked, not even be an automatic starter. I don't know if he was injured or anything, but that's just really odd. And I don't know if there's a Premier League bias or whether that's a very individual case, because Bellingham did get to play every now and then, but nevertheless, it's peeving me. Just as the matter is, Lars, if you have a final thought on that, please go ahead. If not, we can also just knock it on the head here.
I mean, do we want to get into replacements at all?
Yeah, if you have one, go ahead. I don't have any one in the top of my head, because I've not been watching football apart from the Euros, and you know me, I don't concern myself with transfers almost until they happen. And you can get into it, but also there's an episode next week or we can talk about it more widely. But if you want to mention or drop a couple names, be my guest.
Yeah, I mean, basically everybody who does concern themselves with transfers, Stefan, already knows that it looks fairly likely, and that's also what you are hearing behind the scenes, if you like. Not that I'm necessarily behind the scenes all the time.
ITK
that it's, yeah, I'm not a former Spielverlagerung author who sometimes comes onto this show. I don't have that kind of access. I think it's pretty apparent that they really, really like Daniel Malen of PSV in the Dutch Eredivisie, which, I mean, in itself, that kind of scares people because a lot of exports from that league don't do too well. But I think I mean, he got a nice job at Olympique Lyon. So, I mean, if I had to choose someone else's life, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to having Peter Bosch's life, even though he is bald. Yeah, I think
Matthias,
a lot of people.
I wish I had facial expressions here.
Bald is beautiful, Lars. Bald is beautiful.
Yeah, for some people, sure. I mean, it wouldn't work for me. Not yet, anyway.
You're very bald in this profile picture here, though, with us.
That's a buzz cut. I know, keep saying people.
It's
people
the lighting.
I had to change my Twitter
we had
profile
this
picture
conversation
as well.
once before. We had this conversation.
Yeah, that was the
before.
only time Lars actually switched the webcam on to prove that he in fact is not bald.
Not even close to being bald. Like, anyway, if you watch the Euros,
when this episode started with hair, it might as well end with hair. Anyway,
yeah, okay.
Yes, Malen,
I mean,
sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you watch the Euros, you see, you saw rather that he and Memphis were really, yeah, he doesn't like being called his last name because of his father. That they two, them two harmonize really well, and you could kind of see him. Speaking of Malen, really working well together with Holland in that presumable or presumptive two-striker formation. I think it would be quite smart not to try and replace what Sancho does in terms of signing another, dribbly winger, because you're just going to end up with a much worse version of that. So it would make sense, in my opinion, to go for someone like Malen, who is a bit of a different player, but could conceivably have a somewhat similar output in terms of goal involvements, and especially if they change around the style of play a little bit and do opt for a scheme in which two strikerish players can work together. I think that would make a lot of sense, and obviously there's a lot of talk about it, so I wouldn't necessarily be shocked if by next week's transfer show, if we want to call it that, that's not necessarily done already because he's still in post-Euro vacation, but if we got wind of that being close to happening by then.
All right. Matthias, do you have another name or anything to say about Malen, or I'm going to be out of here?
No, I think that makes sense. Bring in Malen, and it's not like Dortmund don't already have some quality wingers. I mean, you look at yes, none of them are Sancho, but you've got Hazard, you've got Reina, you've got Knauf, you've got Reus. I mean, it's not necessarily an area in the team that I would invest a ton of money into right now. Bring in that second striker because it'll fit Rose's ideal system. And then look at what you're going to do in the fullback positions and central defense. You've already got your keeper sorted. So I personally wouldn't want to see them invest a ton of money in a Sancho-like replacement on the wing.
All right. That's, I guess, it then. Me, your confused but not bald host, will sign off. Lars, as always, it was a pleasure to have you on. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me, but not my profile picture that makes it seem like I am bald, which I am not. On Twitter at Lars Pollmann, they can see a nice picture of my very hairy dog.
Matthias?
I don't even know how to follow that up.
I don't know, with a slightly less hairy dog? Don't you have cats too?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting after... Anyway, You can find me on Twitter at Matthias Zug wearing a hat.
Very nice. I thought it was bold and beautiful. Yet you cover it up, Matthias. What's going on?
It's cold. It's cold. Okay, I'm pragmatic.
Fine, but wouldn't a beanie make more sense?
No, because I'm not 20.
I'm still wearing beanies and I'm in my 30s. I don't know what you're trying to say here, Matthias. But anyway, you can find me on Twitter as well, at Stefan Butzko. No headwear, but full head of hair still. Keeping my fingers crossed here. And that's it for this week. We shall be back next week. In the meantime, you can go to @Yellowwallpod on Twitter or Facebook and give us a follow. You can go to our YouTube channel. Just type in The Yellow Wall or Yellowwallpod and subscribe to our channel. Please do that. And otherwise, subscribe to us in the various means via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. And it was really fun to do this again after a month off and some vacation in between. Not you, Lars. So until next week, stay safe as always. Thank you for listening and good